Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Claybrook. I'm the hybrid practice leader here at MicroStrategies. I'm here with a few of my associates, Ed and Mark, and we're going to talk with you about the challenges that enterprises are facing with cybersecurity as we're all working from home during this pandemic event. So the risk along with the solutions and really what to look for. So some straightforward steps to help you out. So Ed, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure, Bob. My name is Serafin. I'm the Chief of Security here at MicroStrategies. I've been in the security industry for a little over 20 years from both an offensive and defensive perspective. I am also our certified ethical hacker for our team. Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Baumfield. I run the managed services practice here at MicroStrategies. I've been here for a little over 20 years. I manage all of our customers' environments and all their assets. So I have a pretty good understanding of what our customers' needs were and what we did to address them.
So guys, if I'm a client, I'm sitting here today trying to understand what it means to have all of these home networks attached to our enterprise networks. So we're all at home. We connected in the past, a very low percentage of the time from a remote perspective. Now that's increased exponentially. So what, just want to, Ed, have you start off and just give us some of the backgrounds of things that could potentially hit us. We're 90+ days into this, and the amount of home networks attached to our enterprise has really changed the vector from a security perspective. So you just give us a little bit of context on for the conversation from your perspective.
Sure. I mean, I could speak from both the offensive and defensive side. So, I mean, from an offensive position, as an attacker, I mean, we have enterprise networks and defense in depth strategies in place in said networks specifically to harden our defenses against that offensive attacker. What's occurring now because of the pandemic is people are being pushed into a remote position working from home, and these security features and defense in depth strategies go out the window in the home network. And for the most part, the reason why enterprise network is an enterprise network is the considerable cost that goes into developing, architecting, and then building out your defensive layers with these very specialized technical tools and mitigations. We don't have that at home. We have, in most cases, your traditional combo router from AT&T or Verizon, Fios, or what have you, or the cable company gives you an all-in-one router that also feeds their public Wi-Fi. I mean, so with that's essentially your security. If you have some antivirus installed, that's great. So I mean, from that's pretty much it. So I mean, from a defender's perspective, what I do in the company, it makes my job that much more difficult, because now we're taking a secured asset, working in a secured environment, and now taking said asset and bringing it to an unsecured environment. We're working on highly privatized intellectual properties or private things for our companies. These things all have to be highly controlled, and we lose visibility and control when we do that. So we're seeing a huge increase in successful phishing efforts and attempts because you're mingling your professional device on your personal network. A lot of times what your private computers at home are infected with are now infecting your corporate asset, and all those risks are jeopardizing our security postures from an enterprise perspective.
Some of the simple things that come to my mind are just from a data loss perspective. So now I have my corporate devices out on my, or BYOD devices, whatever the company's using, on those home networks. So I'm exposing, I think you said this, I'm exposing company data, obviously. And I think that another big one that comes to mind for me is the fact that those devices are out in the wild, so to speak, on the home network, and they're not getting their updates, right? So when that asset's coming in the office on a regular basis, it's being updated and it's under control. But when it's on the home network, it may not attach and get its updates, because let's face it, it's a pain to get those updates pushed down over the wire, so to speak. So maintaining those, and everything is getting stressed. Password policies are being limited or lifted, I guess, the best way to say it. So we're all trying to do things to make things easier for the end users and to get through this thing, right? But now that it's becoming, the paraphrase, the new normal, Mark, what are you hearing, seeing from clients, and is all this resonating with you, I guess?
Yeah, no, it is. And, obviously I'll go off of what Ed was saying. Typically, the old way was just give them VPN access, let them get access onto the network and open up their applications. Most of the times it was network level access, full access. So anything on their home network is coming straight in. With a lot of clients, we're limiting that access just down to the applications. In a lot of cases right now, we're seeing a lot of people going to more of a VDI solution where we can maintain that actual session for them, that workstation. We're patching it, we're maintaining it, we're monitoring it, we're managing it for them. We understand exactly what's happening on it, because at home they can use whatever they want. It's mouse board and keyboard clicks and screenshots. It's nothing coming through. In the old ways, it was that network level access. So one of the big things we're seeing today is a push towards more VDI, more of that type of mouse click and screenshot. So at a high level, we're seeing a lot more of that happening right now.
When you roll back your PC as a service doing VDI, from a security operations perspective, it's also a much simpler prospect to manage because you've got a centralized point in which you can focus your attention there. So, I mean, while security inherently is not a simple thing, it does simplify certain aspects of it, which is always a welcome relief, especially in this type of a situation.
Yeah.
So I guess with VDI, you can lock down that desktop to not completely eliminate all of the challenges, but from a security perspective, now I have that focal point, and I don't have to worry about the physical asset, and I can understand and I can manage on a daily basis. So updates and things like that are no longer a problem. And then I've isolated it, similar to MDM or multi-device management. I can keep track of it. I know where it is all times. I don't need it to be attached to the network because it's inside the network in essence, right?
That's correct. And bring your own device is irrelevant at that point, right? Because we don't really need to manage it and maintain that and make sure that it's secure, although we want it to be. We're really managing that asset that the business owns.
Then you have the ability to give access to people, whether they want to transport things off that VDI session or not, even down to the level of copy and paste type function. Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that comes to mind is these devices, and we all use the cloud today, right? So we're all using these SaaS-based applications like M365 for email and things like that. What do you typically do from a VDI session to lock that down? So I'm not accessing mail outside that VDI session. Is it possible to lock it down?
Yeah, absolutely. We do that quite often. So you're basically only gaining access to corporate data and information through a corporate device, so we can manage it and maintain it and actually track that if we need to.
And this way you separate what you're currently commingling together, which comminglement, it's always a dangerous prospect when you're mixing your personal and your professional lives together. So, I mean, especially looking at it from a corporate perspective, where you lock down and want to lock down to the highest level of your intellectual property, having that encrypted partition, essentially, that space, that wall that does not permit a user from inadvertently bringing something over to their personal realm, or even an attacker getting into that person's laptop, they're relegated to just that section. They can't get in to the highly controlled, secured section of the laptop when you're looking at VDI sessions. So, I mean, you again get that additional layer of security, especially that in this environment, that's huge. And it takes a lot of strain off of your corporate resources as well when it's rolled out appropriately.
And then your standard policies, you can get everything back in place and get your standards set again. So it sounds like, as we read these articles about attackers going after Americans in their homes because of the remote workforce that we've now all become a part of, it sounds like VDI would be something to take the first step on. What other solutions have you seen people utilizing, or what are we implementing today, or what else can we do to help protect the enterprise from the home networks?
Locking down globally or nationally, or even within the states, right? Just doing a lockdown of where you're able to connect from, or doing that impossible connect from, even if you know that you have businesses across the United States. If I logged in New Jersey, but 5 minutes later I logged in California, that's impossible. I mean, yes, we know technically it's capable if we go through a couple of different routes, but that would be a red flag. So we stop that in most cases. In some cases we can't, but we alert on it, right? So there's ways that we're actually putting a lot more of that knowledge, alerting and reinforcement of, making sure the right people are connecting to the customer's environment.
So at the
Well, I mean,
network layer puts solutions in that don't allow illogical access, is what I think you just said. Okay, I got it. I'm
so
sorry.
speaking from an enterprise security perspective, you always want centralized monitoring. I mean, you want to gain visibility. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't fight a war if you don't know where the battlefield is. You can't see the battlefield. You don't know where your assets are. You can't
Right.
have this distributed posture and then have no control over those assets. So, I mean, to further simplify, while maintaining your defensive layer strategy with militarized defense in depth, you want to have the most visibility possible, but you also don't want to be in a situation where you're logging into 100 different devices just to be able to get that quick answer. You need a single pane of glass strategy in which you have multiple tools operating systematically to provide you that actionable intelligence right at the single point in which you log in. So for example, a SIM solution, that's your single pane of glass. When you log in, you see all pertinent information right there on that single dashboard. So you know what you're dealing with, or at least have the actionable intelligence to figure out what you're dealing with in a much shorter amount of time versus logging into various tools and various things just to figure out something. So I mean, advanced endpoint detection and response, that's critical when you're securing all of your assets in the field, making sure that they're able to update your patching policies are enforceable, and no matter where they're connected, they're still able to pull the patches directly to their systems. Because again, your biggest threat are misconfiguration and lack of patches. We have these patches and security hotfixes to address new vulnerabilities that are discovered on a daily basis. If you're not receiving appropriate patches in a timely manner, your risk surface exponentially increases by an order of magnitude. So, I mean, those are all important aspects. To go back to visibility, by having all of this data feeding into a single pane of glass, you're able to see at a glance where your risks might lie with certain systems being out of patch date, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, on one hand, you want to make this easy to manage, but on the other hand, you don't want to so overcomplicate things to where you just can't move. You need to be able to be dynamic and flexible, and that's really the whole point of VDI mixed with the security layers and controls in place. It gives you that ability to be dynamic, to move, roll with the punches as they come in, because our risk surface changes almost hourly. I mean, we're always discovering new things and new exploits, and when you put things on unprotected networks, I mean, the security just goes out the window. So we need to compensate with these tools.
So it sounds like, and I know we've also looked at some analytics tools and things like that to help understand the associate experience on the solutions, right? So we're sitting here talking about utilizing VDI, putting network rules in place to limit access and look for abnormal traffic and things like that. And you can get a different set of experiences, but we also have tools, and you're making me think about this as we're literally in the conversation about running on the analytics side, looking at the associate behavior, how they're using the systems, and making sure that the experience is there, right? So even though we're tightening things up, because we start talking about locking things down, and we all know that many clients have loosened things up to make this at-home thing work correctly. So now if we get VDI in place to limit that surface, and then we start to put the network traffic monitoring in place and start to lock down with automated tools, right? We're not talking about manual processes, baselining traffic, and then applying rules to that traffic that make logical sense. Then we could take a third step and start to look at the behavior of our associates as they're connected into the enterprise network and make sure that they have a good experience, right? And it also tell us about the anomalies that happen and understand what they're doing and how the applications are being served up to them. So,
Bob, one of the things I failed to mention, that we see a lot of happening even before all those layers is the layer of multi-factor authentication. That second layer of authentication, because that right there is a deterrent, right? To get connected, somebody outside of the network, they have to have that second layer. So that's something I failed to mention. That's pretty critical, and we see across the board.
Okay.
Well, as a security practitioner, our number one job is to constantly reduce risk surface. So to your point, Mark, I mean, to reduce, there are a combination of things an enterprise can do to drop that risk surface down as much as possible. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to eliminate risk 100%. That's just not how it works. We're seeing in this new environment an increase in AI-based attacks. These are metamorphic attacks, which is now starting to require enterprises to adopt artificial intelligence, because even if you had a fully manned SOC 24/7 capabilities with all the best tools, if you didn't have artificial intelligence incorporated into that tool stack, even if you were in the right place at the right time, you still would probably fail to see the attack happening.
Or be able to stop it in time, right? So
yeah,
exactly.
You can't get through fast enough, obviously. Well, I know we spent a few minutes here. I just want to summarize and kind of wrap up. So I guess from our perspective, what we're seeing with our clients and through our experiences, and obviously bringing Ed's perspective as a hacker, the ethical hacker into the mix, if we can get to VDI, we can do some number one. It's probably I think that, in my opinion, it's the most important thing. Put network monitoring in place to monitor the traffic and look for abnormal traffic, and using artificial intelligence would be number two. And then I think, because we're restricting the environment, to put something on top of that environment to understand the analytics behind what the experience is for the associates attaching to the enterprise. It gives you pretty much a full view of your environment, and we're as close as we're going to be able to get, or similarly back into that enterprise where everyone's attaching from inside the office. So I don't know, you guys have any final thoughts?
that's a pretty holistic view. The way you laid it out there, that is going to give you a good overview. I agree.
Okay. Right, and then three simple steps. And again, these solutions aren't difficult to implement, and it's something you can get done if you have the right focus in a short amount of time. So, all right. Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to the next conversation. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
As well.